Ladies and gentlemen, we finally did it. We got him.
I preach that to people all the time when they say, what is the most important thing to be a COD player? At the end of the day, you just have to have like delusional confidence. Like there's nothing wrong with like, I'm not saying ego wise, but you know, when you're dropping in these maps and you're going against a big name, like obviously you still have respect for what these other players have achieved. And so you're like, nah, like I have a lot of respect for what he's done. But at the same time, when you're loading into the map against him, it's like, it doesn't matter if I don't have a track record yet, like this guy's about to become my track record type of vibe.
Hello, my name is Minges and welcome to Unfiltered Conversations with Creators. In episode 22, we are lucky enough to talk to Exzachtt, one of the top players in both Blackout and Warzone. We bounce between his experience coming up as both a competitor and a content creator over the last 4 years, and creating Sock Gang, the best community in the world. If you enjoyed the chat, it would help a ton if you left a like, comment, and subscribe for more Conversations with Creators. All right, Exzachtt, we start off every podcast with a food-related question. I'm not going to ask you how you like your steak, but I'm going to ask you what you think goes best with it.
Well, that's crazy that you don't ask, but the best with steak, I would say, I think you just got to go like baked potato, maybe some like asparagus in there, unless you're talking sauce. Then sauce, I don't know. I don't really use sauce for steak, to be honest. Even though like I feel like people will like roast me for being like a well done type of guy, I don't use sauce. I'm just straight in the action, so that's what I rock with.
Yeah, I was worried about the steak question because a lot of people have heard the food takes before, and I didn't want to get too far into the weird conversations at the start.
Yeah.
No, but I find it kind of interesting to hear what kind of things you like to mix. Two completely different things that will go together. Kind of like how content creation can be mixed in with competing. But we can talk about that as we go. First, let's start off with what were you into as a kid? Like, how did you grow up? What were you into?
Yeah, so growing up, I definitely was kind of into, I was definitely into video games. I got that from my dad. He was a pretty big gamer growing up. But most of the time, I was pretty much playing sports. I was always super competitive. And so video games kind of fell in that realm as well. But at the time then, there really wasn't esports, right? Like this was not like a set path by anyone yet. And so, yeah, most of the time I spent just hanging out with the homies. Like I said, playing sports, played baseball, soccer, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much how most of my time kind of was spent until I developed asthma and had some injuries with sports. And then that's what led me to play even more games. And then that's when I found like Nadeshot online. I was like, wait, there's people doing this. Like, this is crazy. And then that's kind of where I shifted, I guess, my attention towards esports.
What kind of games did your dad get you into when you guys were playing together?
Oh, dude, he got me straight up in there. So one of the first was Halo. So he got me into Halo. I think I was like 7 at the time. So he had me gunning people pretty early on the map. And yeah, so we would play Halo all day. And then COD 4 dropped. And then I played Call of Duty 4. And that kind of set me up to be a lifelong COD fan, I guess.
Yeah, like a FPS demon. Did your dad take it easy on you, or was he like, you gotta earn the right to gun me?
Yeah, no, earn the right to gun me. So he would slam me. We would play like custom games, 1v1s. He would slam me, but that's what made it good when I was like getting older and I was like starting to gun him back. I started winning a couple maps. I was like, hold on here. Nah, he never did.
No, that's good. I like that. Yeah, because you can see that improvement and you kind of like, I think as a kid, you kind of know when your parents or your dad is taking it easy on you with certain things. I used to play games against my dad as well. And sometimes I could tell when he wasn't really trying, and you kind of like it that you win, but kind of at the same time, you wish you could beat him when he's trying hard.
Exactly. Like it's nowhere near as rewarding. Like you could tell instantly, like he's taking his foot off the pedal. And it's like, I remember even at a young age, I was like, dude, don't disrespect me like that. Go hard. Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't take it easy on me, Dad. No, I like that. Yeah. Your dad's had a lot to do with, getting into gaming and in that kind of scene. How did you approach getting into streaming and getting to gaming in that way?
Yeah. So, like I said, at the time, I wish I would sent you like a picture of my first setup. No one's ever seen it. I don't think I've even showed it on stream, but it's pretty comical. It's rough. And at the time, it was when I first found out about Call of Duty. I'd seen Nadeshot. I was watching him compete. And then I started getting into Twitch, and that's where I found like Nick Merckx and other people, and I was watching them play COD back then. And I thought it was so cool, and I really wanted to do it. I just never really had good enough internet. And so the area I was in, I think the best internet I could get was like it wasn't dial up, but let's just say it's like on par with dial up. And so I would lag just to play online games and then let alone like trying to stream and then have money for a setup and all that. It was just kind of out of the question. So that's where initially I've talked about it on a stream. I've worked a lot of different jobs, but it was my first setup came from I was working at a credit union while I was still in college. And so I was basically taking all the money and I was trying to pay my car off that I had just gotten at the time. And then the rest of the money was going towards trying to get like a PC, get a setup, get actual like monitors, get stuff that I would need, like a comfortable desk, a chair, like all this stuff. And that's when I ended up starting to piece together a little bit of a setup. And then towards blackout side of things is when I ended up finally having to move into that apartment after years of just kind of battling, I guess, with my ISP and realizing like, you know what, like no matter what, my internet's never going to be good enough to stream here. And so I probably have to just kind of save up some cash and get my own spot to take the risk. And that's really where everything came from. It was a very fast process, to be honest. It was within like I would say maybe like within a year of just kind of like saving away every money I got and trying to work towards, like I said, building a setup and then getting somewhere to where I would have internet to even really be able to stream and make content.
Okay, so you basically got into it knowing that you wanted to make something out of it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, that's cool. So you kind of like approached it where you knew this is what I got to do, this is how I'm going to get there, and you kind of had a plan in place, or would you say you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants kind of thing?
A little bit of both. It wasn't like I had, because let's be real, I think at that time, going from where I was at that time, right? Like I had no connections. It wasn't like I was friends with like any big COD players that had kind of followings or platforms. Like really didn't know anyone at the time. And so it was just kind of me coming into the scene and, uh, I had the mindset of like, I'll figure it out, just wing it. But I didn't have a plan just because it felt so insane, right? Let's be real. The amount of people, especially then, I mean, I know now there's a lot more creators, which is dope. I feel like the scene has definitely flourished a bit where whether it's more people are finding out about it or maybe there's just more opportunities opening up now to where people can start really having set plans in place of how they want to strategize and push their content or competition. But at that time, man, there really was no blueprint. And it's similar to now, I guess there really isn't either. So it was more so of like, I believe in myself and I know how bad I want to do this. And, if it works out, amazing. But if not, I still was going to be doing what I love to do anyway. So, and that's what I would talk to my parents about. And they were like, you really, it's no lose situation here, like you win regardless. And so that's how I always approach things. And yeah, it just happened to kind of fall in place how it did, which is really cool.
Did you give yourself like a time, like I'm going to give myself like a year or 6 months to get something out of this? Or did you just say, I'm going to commit to it long term?
Yeah, at the time, I wanted to commit long term. At the time, I just got out of a relationship with a girl that I like thought was gonna be wifey. Like I dated, I think we dated for about almost going on like 3.5, 4 years. So I at that time I was like college, get my degree. I was working at the bank. This is my girl that I'm thinking I'm gonna have a family with and all this stuff. So when all that kind of fell apart and I was like a single man for the first time in a minute, I was like, know what? I'm just going to give myself as much time as I want, and I'm going to pour my heart into my job at the time, and then also into streaming and gaming. And like I said, things happened pretty quickly after I moved into that apartment. I think the Doug host came like about 2 to 3 months in, and that's really when the ball started to get rolling. And I spent a lot of sleepless nights, man. I would go to work, have to drive like 3 hours back from work with my homie, and then I would hop on stream for a couple hours, take like a mini nap, and do it all over again. But yeah, I never really had like a set time or schedule in place.
So at that time, I know you were playing Blackout, like you said, and you're kind of getting your name out there. Was it through tournaments or anything like that? Or were you pretty much just popping into streams, trying to network and play games with people, or just put your name out, dropping high kill games?
So yeah, Blackout is very interesting, which looking back, it's pretty wild to see that was the game where things kind of started to develop for me, just because that game really it didn't have a ton of popularity. There really wasn't any tournaments or competing in that game. Like you could go on like CMG and you could go like the wager route, but it was nowhere near as developed as like the Warzone scene when it comes to the tournament scene. So yeah, there really wasn't that aspect. It just kind of all came from that host from Doug. And I know like it was the smart thing to do to like try to network with people and, try to become friends with streamers. But at the end of the day, I'm the type of person where I wanted things to be like organic, right? So when it comes to someone's bigger than me that I would love to network with or anything like that, I never would ask them because I was like, you know what? Hopefully they'll just ask me or like it'll just naturally happen. Or if it doesn't naturally happen, it just wasn't meant to be. And so that's how it really developed was Doug hosted me that time. And it was like a random host. He seemed to really enjoy it. His community was seemed to really be enjoying it. I think he hosted me like the next day or like he threw me another host very recent after that, which he said he normally never did, but he's like, I kind of like this guy, so let's host him again. And then, yeah, more hosts kept coming in. And then finally, he finally asked me one time, he was like, yo, man, would you ever be down to like run a duo or something? And I was like, sure, like I'd love to. And we played a couple duos, and that's where he kind of got me into playing with Teep, Crowder, a couple of those guys. And so they all started finding out about me simply because Doug was kind of helping me network in a way. Just because, again, I was always very scared. I didn't want to come off as this like pushy, like I want to play with you so I can get some kind of gain from it. I just always came to it like, hey, if you want a game, if you think it'd be a vibe, I'm down, let's do it. But if not, no worries at all. And I'll just try to find my own like organic route throughout the scene. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how everything kind of fell into place.
It kind of could have been weird if like he hosted you the first time and then you were instantly like, yo, Doug, want to play kind of thing. It could have been taken across the wrong way, but like you said, you kind of played it cool, played the offhand a little bit, and just waited for him to come to you kind of thing.
Exactly. Because that was the thing at the time is I knew, like, trust me, it was very exciting. I couldn't believe that was the first time before the Doug host. Max viewers I probably hit was like, 10 to 15. And a lot of those was just my homies popping in like, yo, Z, like he's on the game, like got him streamed, like stuff like that. So there wasn't like any kind of basis there. So I definitely had that urge in me where I was like, do I take a shot? Like, do I ask him to play or something like that? Because I don't know if this is going to just fizzle out and never manifest. But like I said, I try to play cool. I didn't want to bother him or anything. And it just happened to work out. Thankfully, Doug liked me, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, Doug's a cool guy, and obviously you knew of him. You'd seen him around the scene, kind of thing, because, like you said, the community was a bit smaller compared to what Warzone is. Did you have a way of trying to manage your time as well when you're starting out? Do you just dedicating like hours upon hours of streaming and gaming, or did you? I mean, obviously you were living alone, and it was probably the first time you were living on your own. You could have been, going out, hitting the clubs at night, doing whatever. But like, did you find you kind of dedicated yourself to this one thing a bit more?
Yeah. So speaking of like my homies back then, I kind of, they would give me a hard time because they're like, dude, Zach never does anything. Like all of a sudden now he like works and he goes home and he does his little stream, and they pop into my stream and they see me streaming to like I said, a handful of people. And they're like, okay, I guess if you don't want to come hang out, like do your thing, bro. So that's really all I did, man. I would go to work. I'd do the gym at the time, and then I would come home and stream and basically do it all over again. And that was really my life. And for, I would say, the large majority of, I guess, a blackout. And even to this day, you know what I mean? Obviously now it's a little bit easier to do other things. But at that time, yeah, when it's just kind of like, you got to make it, you got to figure this out. Yeah, it was pretty much work. I could afford to live at my place, and then the rest of my time was streaming and figuring out how to do this,
Yeah. There's a lot of people who came up through Blackout with yourself. I mean, some people have been around first-person shooters for a long time. You got like Husk, and tried to look up a lot of the old Blackout tournaments. You had some names that people might know, like Finesse and Dill, Gangsters, Youngsters, Devera, Wag, Joe. Like, there's a ton of people that came up through that scene. When you started, competing and beating these names and making a name for yourself, were you getting like this buzz? Were you like, did you have an I made it kind of moment yet at that point?
Not yet, I wouldn't say. And I don't know. I guess I've just always had a very like delusional confidence about myself. And I preach that to people all the time when they say, what is the most important thing to be a COD player? At the end of the day, you just have to have like delusional confidence. Like, there's nothing wrong with, like, I'm not saying ego wise, but when you're dropping in these maps and you're going against a big name, like obviously you still have respect for what these other players have achieved. And so you're like, nah, like I have a lot of respect for what he's done. But at the same time, when you're loading into the map against them, it's like, it doesn't matter if I don't have a track record yet, like this guy's about to become my track record type of vibe.
Yeah.
So like you have to go in there with delusional confidence. And I definitely was. And to this day, I wouldn't even say I really had like a I've made it moment yet per se. Definitely very thankful for everything that's happened. I would say maybe the closest moments of like I felt very cool was like when I got to play with Nade, just because that guy was like my hero when I first found out about this scene. So when he finally gave me a shot and being able to talk to him off stream, and he was so cool and so nice and shared like words of encouragement, and he believed in me and what I had going on. That was definitely scratched, I guess, a little bit of that like, holy cow, like maybe this is like, maybe I am making it in a way, but not fully yet. I won't say I've hit that moment just yet.
Okay, it's interesting you say that. Because like I said, Blackout was taken off for you as a streamer, creator. You started making some videos. Was that something that you got told to do? Was that something like, you know what, I need to grow the stream, or you just wanted to get your name out there? Like, how did that begin?
Yeah, a little bit. So at the time, I'm not too sure if you know Arsco in chat or RJ. So yeah. At the time when I had first met Brandon was definitely a big part of everything. But so was RJ, and RJ was someone I used to compete with and play with all the time, and he would always gas me up, man. And that's one thing I would love about him to this day is even before I've known RJ now. I met him through like a Reddit post like 10 years ago. He put it something, his first ever post on Reddit saying, you know, like looking for a COD team that's looking to be serious. And I'd never used Reddit, and I just happened to land on Reddit that day, and I was like, I'm gonna hit this guy up. And then turns out 10 years later, I mean, we're still, that guy's like my ride or die, my best friend till the end. And he would always gas me up, give me that delusional gas of like, I think you can do this. You should be putting out content. You should be streaming. Like, yeah, I feel like you really can make a name for yourself out here. And so he helped me post a lot of my early on YouTube videos before Brandon kind of started getting in the works and helping me out. But yeah, he was always very adamant on, I guess, being in my corner of like, you need to do this, you should be doing that type of vibe. And I definitely knew at the time. It was just Blackout was a little weird because it wasn't as popular on YouTube versus just live streams. So it was kind of weird to post on there. And so even when I'd be like, dude, I don't think it's worth it, like yada, yada, he would be on my ass like, no, it is worth it. Regardless if views are there at the moment or this is popping right now, you should be doing it. So.
And so this time of year, we're talking like early 2020, you just made Twitch partner. You got a partnership with Battle Beaver like the next month or something like that. That must have felt like a nice validation too, that there was a company that was willing to put their name to what it is that you do.
Oh, it was massive. Yeah, it was massive. My friend RJ at the time actually helped me with that. And he was a lot better with words at the time than me. And so he's like, you know, we're going to send them this email, yada, yada. And he got us on a phone call. So we both hopped on the phone with Battle Beaver. We had a really good convo, really, really good convo. And I'm not going to lie, I was definitely a lot smaller at the time. So I didn't want to get my hopes up too much just because I was like, yeah, like maybe like they'll entertain it, but nah. But they gave us a phone call. We hopped on the phone. Things went smooth. And they were like, you know what? Like, we really like you. We believe in what you're doing. Like, we're down to lock this in for the long haul. And it's been amazing, amazing partnership ever since. I've never thought about ever leaving them. They've taken such good care of me. And definitely that was major, dude. That was my first real, I guess, like sponsorship or partnership. So 100%, that made me feel like, oh my God, maybe I am starting to become a gamer.
Not long after this happened, so your stream numbers are insane. They're getting above 100-ish, and you're putting out YouTube videos, and then Warzone 1 drops, and it's like a completely new game, and it's not well received at the time by a lot of the Blackout community, was it?
It was tough, man. It was very, very different. I will say I kind of, before Warzone dropped, I don't think it matters anymore. They're just exposing.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think Doug's like under NDA or something anymore. But at the time, Doug had went and played Warzone early. And so, you know, he was telling me these things of, yeah, like he's telling me there's a gulag. And like, if you die, you're 1v1 and people throw rocks at you. And I was like, what? I was like, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. He's like, yeah, like you can get score streaks now. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, UAVs, like you can get precisions. And I was like, what? Like I literally was so frustrated, so sad. And because I'd finally felt like I was getting traction for Blackout, and that's the one thing that does feel kind of scary as a creator is like, you know, no one's waiting for you. So even if you're getting traction on this one game, if they go away from that, you just kind of have to figure it out. That's on you to figure it out at that point. You kind of have to figure out how to manage going to a new game and almost restarting again. And so I was very upset at the time, very, very upset. And it took me a little minute before I started coming around to the idea of playing Warzone and really enjoying it and kind of believing in it as a game.
Mm. And that was still, you were still on console back then, so you made the switch. Did you delete Blackout? Like, did you keep going back to it, or did you once Warzone came out, did you commit to it?
Once Warzone dropped, that's when, like you were saying, I did start out. I think I played the first couple weeks on PS4, and I'd already ordered a PC. So I had ordered a PC, which at the time was, again, it felt scary because one, I was going to a new game. And two, like that, PCs are expensive. And so it wasn't like I had all this money saved away to kind of like afford revamping a setup by any means. So it was kind of like a gut wrencher of, man, I'm about to have to take another leap of faith after I just did. And it kind of worked out. And now kind of invest a lot more of this money back into my setup in hopes like we can kind of hit a redo in Warzone. And obviously Warzone ended up becoming like one of the most popular games in the world. So that was a blessing. But yeah, at the time I knew, regardless of how bad I wanted Blackout to kind of continue on, I knew it was like one of those things, you kind of have to cut the cord and completely drop it and just fully invest myself into Warzone.
It must have been scary too, because you had just pretty much gone full time, and this was your like main source of income kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I was petrified, man. I was definitely, again, not sleeping much, not because like I had a job and all this stuff. At that point, I was just not sleeping because I was so nervous.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big pressure too, and like you said, it takes a lot of faith to believe in yourself to keep going in this kind of situation. That you've started it once, you've built yourself up in one game, you could probably do it again. But yeah, it's a leap of faith for sure.
100%.
So Warzone 1 comes out, and a lot of the names that came from Blackout are still also doing the same thing. They're making a name for themselves. There's a lot of tournaments going on. You're trying to get in and compete and make a name for yourself, but you're kind of not getting the captain spots at the moment. Tell us about how it was trying to get in to make a name for yourself at that time, where the game is like booming. It's rapidly expanding, and there's a lot of tournaments happening, but you kind of can't get your foot in the door just yet.
Yeah, it was tough, man. I'm not gonna lie, it was very, very tough, just because back then, the tournament organizers would always tweet out, we have this tournament coming up, who do you guys think should be in it? And so at that point, I was thinking, maybe if I get enough vouchers, maybe if I comment and they see like enough of the community is riding with me, they would want to do it. And now later down the line, I've been in the scene long enough where I realize most of the time those are kind of just like, they're just trying to farm engagements, right, for their tournament. They usually have already, because once I did get a couple captain spots, I was like, man, they're letting me know like a month before the tournament. And then they tweet out and they're like, who do you want to see in it? I'm like, yeah. Okay, I kind of see what's going on. The captains were picked a long time ago, but yeah, man, it was very discouraging, I guess, just because it felt like, like it felt like I could hop on stream, hop off, drop crazy kill games, show my potential, show my talent level. But at the same time, it didn't matter, right? Unless you were able to like somehow form a friendship with someone or kind of network your way into that scene. It felt kind of like, like it was like not a friendship scene, but you had to, obviously the captains were going to be given to like the Titans with the most viewership. And then from there, whoever they kind of vibed with is who got to play with them. So yeah, it was definitely very discouraging, but it just kind of, again, it reinstilled like me wanting to go harder, me constantly wanted to prove myself even to like a whole nother level all over again. So in a way, I think it did drive me in a good way. You can always use those things, in my opinion, for positive.
Yeah, and there was a kind of a way that they had of running tournaments back then as well, where there was a KD cap. So a lot of the demons were looking for people to run with that would have a lower KD, and yourself playing solo quads all the time. The KD was kind of chalked because of the way you were playing, but you were used to taking on teams, man. So it was like someone picking up you was picking up like a demon who knew how to handle themselves in that situation, and was kind of like an undiscovered talent kind of thing, even though you'd been doing it for a while.
Exactly, and that's why I was it worked out for me. I know at first I definitely got some DMs from some pretty prominent people in the Warzone scene. I won't say names at the time early on, where they were like, this guy's doing something like either I was like had a Cronus, or then I was like tanking my KD with a Cronus to like try to get my name out there. it was a lot of like speculations that I was doing weird things. And I was like, dude, if you turn on my stream, you'll see I'm using Lil Marco's LMG trying to fight 1v4, bro. Like, I'm sorry my KD's low this day.
Yeah, it's all Marco's fault.
Dude, blame it on Marco.
Yeah. But yeah, at that time, it was a crazy time of in the world where COVID was happening. This new game drops. It's kind of like, I don't know. You could say that the circumstances of the world kind of blew up the game at the same time because everyone was stuck at home. But there was a lot of hype in chat. A lot of people came together and found community in a lot of Twitch streams, including yourself. Tell us what it's like getting this flood of people in and creating a community that really started to come together and hang out every day.
Like I said, I have goosebumps thinking about it right now. It was crazy, man. It was crazy just because, not that I don't believe in myself, but it just felt even more, it just felt dope that like I was chosen as like a hangout spot for so many people just because there's so many streamers that are so good at what they do, man. Like there's so many talented COD streamers that are great at the game. They're super cool. They're funny, whatever it may be. But to have, like you said, seeing like the same names come in every day and they're like, yo, what's good, guys? And not there's like a set normal, but normal people as in like they're not toxic, right? They're not toxic trolls on the internet. Like it just seemed like everyone that was hanging out on a daily basis had like such a good head on their shoulders, man. And whether we're talking about like food, music, movies, and people are sharing, they're like, oh my God, that used to be my favorite too. Like, then they're talking about old memories when they're however many years ago. It really, I was thinking about the other night, dude, and no shame, I did tear up a little bit just off the thought of how cool those years were, regardless of all the bad stuff that was going on in the world, obviously. And a lot of people were stuck at home, that I could be at home and really experience that, something that who knows, will probably just an experience of like a pandemic. And like you said, and people online as much as they were and hanging out with communities. Regardless if we ever get another pandemic, I mean, obviously, hopefully we don't. We get another pandemic, but for my lifetime that I lived through, to think I got to be at home and experience again, like you're talking about, such an experience that not many people get to experience, like is to be able to hop on and have those same people come through and everyone is so vibey and to start building a community where people were excited to see me every day. They were excited to see each other every day. It felt like that first day of school, like every day when I went live, for sure.
And so I just insert myself into this situation because this is basically when I started finding your streams and things like that. So I came from YouTube through other streamers, came to find Sock Gang, and I had looked around Twitch and seen some of the bigger creators. Sometimes you type in and like half a second later your message is gone. There's like 15,000 people in there. It's huge, but I found it was really cool to watch someone who's really, really good at the game also be able to look over to his second monitor and chat with the people in chat and carry on a conversation with like multiple different people, and those multiple people are talking with multiple people in chat and just kind of getting to know each other. It was such a unique experience and something that was highly addictive at a time where a lot of people couldn't go see friends, and that was their friendship. They had to find community in that way, and there's some lifelong friends in there, and it was really, really cool to have one spot daily, every day. You knew you could go in and forget about what was going on in the world and just be there and be part of something.
No, so beautifully said, because at the same time, like you said, it literally was the world going through that. So it felt like, all of us are going through something that no one has ever been through before, and we're all stuck at home. And in my opinion, when it comes to online relationships or online friends, I feel like those are some of the most true friends that you would find if you find those, just because in real life, not that you're like limited to your environment, but in a way you are, like your friends that you were friends with at school. Like obviously you're homies with them and you guys definitely get along. I'm not discrediting your friendship, but at the same time, I mean, you were in a classroom with that person and like 20 other people every day. You kind of were forced, not in a way, but like you're gonna find people
limited by your location.
Limited.
Yeah.
So when you're hopping online, there's no more kind of gates to like age or location or anything like that. So when you do find people that you gel with online and you guys become friends, in my opinion, my online friends have been easily some of my closest best friends at this point, just because like you can actually have a choice, right? Like you can be like I don't think we're gonna be homies, and you never talk or see that person again. So yeah, that was such a, like you were saying, such a cool way of everyone was experiencing such a wild thing in the world at the time. And when we're all coming together and sharing that and having a good time together, it was dude, hands down, like gonna be one of my favorite experiences for the rest of my life for sure.
And that was a good time too, where it was there was kind of like a routine to things in a way. Tournaments were pretty frequent, and we used to know like Warzone Wednesdays or the Vic Star tournaments, and things were happening frequently where there was a hype to that day. You'd jump on, there'd be like that intro music, and chat was going crazy. How did it feel with you knowing that you always had hundreds of people coming in and supporting you on these big tournament days?
Dude, I'm telling you, man, literally one of the craziest feelings of my life, just because I don't know, being like, especially at that time, like you were saying, it was so hard for me to kind of get into a tournament. So when I did, it was like coming in as the underdog and hopping on stream, like having a game day. Like it would feel like a game day. I'd hop on, we got the music blaring, all the homies are there excited. And after like a couple tournaments of things going severely bad, and then still like the next tournament I go live and everyone still brings the same energy, the same belief. It really like just instilled in me of, it's not just about me anymore per se. It's not about like me winning anymore. It's not about me competing anymore. It's really about my community and me. Just because online, like I'm saying, like no one's forced to have to support me. No one's forced to have to come to my stream and cheer me on and really want me to win. So it really opens up something in you when you have all these people across the world that just have like that belief in you, and it feels like they want it just as bad as you do for you. And so then it becomes like I'm competing for these people and I'm doing this for these people. And that's why it would hurt even more in a little way when I would lose, because I would have to talk to Brandon and he would always, he'd be like, dude, you're fine. But I'm like, man, I'm letting people down, dude. Like all these people are coming in day to day and they want me to succeed so bad and they want me to win so bad. And when I wasn't, oh, dude, it would crush me, bro. That's why I'd have to get off stream too. The whole rest of the day would be chalk because I felt like, dude, I'm letting these people down in a way. But it was, again, like you're saying, such a beautiful experience and really cool.
You got some really you started to make a name for yourself. You're playing with sometimes you get picked up by people you haven't played with before. You get paired together. I remember you playing with Lucky Shamu once, who was you'd never played before but placed very well. You used to play with Joe quite a bit. You played with Husk, Brad, Isaac, and it was always kind of a rotating door of teammates. But eventually, come Caldera time, you kind of began to get some consistency with who you would play with.
Yeah, and I will say that was a very that was a planned thing. I realized, towards the end of the Verdansk run, it's just not possible, man. It's just not possible to always be trying to find a teammate and always try to do these things. Simply because it takes time to build chem. It takes time to build that confidence in each other, that trust in each other, and really understanding how each other's going to play and how you can help bring even the best out of your teammate. And I feel like that's never really talked about in gaming per se, where people just say, you just like, obviously you want top talented people on your team that can shoot their gun straight. But at the same time, having that ability to know, again, like how I can be a better teammate for them to help them excel and vice versa, is when I realized like that's what it takes if you want to be considered, like a top team or like a top player in this game. And so that's why going into Caldera, I really did want to lock things in initially with Brolic and Youngsters. And then obviously Young kind of did his own thing. And that's where I asked B, I was like, what about Jace? Because I knew they had duoed before. And he was like, yeah, like I think he's really good. If you want to take a shot, like obviously I like him a lot. And I was like, let's do it. Because at that point I realized I'd never seen Jace play before, but obviously, Jace has manifested to an amazing player to this day. Everyone is pretty aware of that now. But at the time, I don't think it was as known. He was very much under the radar other than playing with Brolic. And again, I just realized, it takes like believing in people. It takes coming and showing up every day and really building like an aura and kind of an environment to succeed together.
So obviously a lot of in-game things are important, like being able to communicate and understand each other's communications clearly and quickly, because there's a lot of pressure situations where you need to react to whatever they've said very quickly and understand what they've said. But how much goes on behind the scenes when it comes to forming a team like that and doing homework and getting into competing with and against other people?
Definitely, I would say it's becoming more so. Like I'll be honest, during Verdansk, I never did like VOD reviews. I never did the extra time. Simply because like I was so at that moment, I was so focused on just my stream, socking, the community. And then I did realize, towards the end, I felt like it did hurt me away in the competitive scene, just because since I wasn't always playing wagers, I wasn't always doing stuff. It kind of shifted of like maybe Zach is just a content creator and he's not like very competitive. And that's why in Caldera, I kind of wanted to break that stigma a bit, just because I've always been very competitive. It's just, you know what I mean, how things kind of laid out at the time. But I definitely wasn't doing any extra time or homework outside of things up until Caldera, where, we're having these off disc or off stream talks with your teammates. You're kind of doing VOD reviews on the plays that went wrong as a team, or maybe what you did wrong as a team, how to never make that mistake again. But yeah, it definitely, if you want to pride yourself as being a top player or just a top team, there's so much more than what the audience sees of like, they just hop on and play pubs and that's how they're just the best. Like, it just doesn't work out that way. It's just like regular sports. You got to have the uncomfortable talks and you got to put the time in if you really, like I said, you want to see success. Because at the end of the day, man, all these guys are extremely talented.
Is that something that you knew was happening at the time in Verdansk, but you kind of thought you could get by? Or was that something that's kind of like evolved as Warzone's continued to grow and become kind of a bit more professional, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I definitely at the time I was very unaware. Just because I thought, like, in a way, I thought I could get by, but I'm like, yeah, like I play solo quads and stuff like that. Like, I feel like I'm very good. Like, I can be a good teammate or whatever. And I'll be honest, back then I was very, I don't know the word for it, maybe immature, but I hated to go back and watch how I would lose a tournament. I couldn't fester it, dude. One, I've never been a big fan of watching myself in general, or like hearing myself talk. That's something you got to get over if you're going to be a content creator. It just is what it is. You got to do it. So Verdansk, I would instantly delete. I didn't want to watch anything back because it would hurt too much. And because I was so competitive and watch myself make a dumb play or something and I can't change it, I'm like, oh, you moron. But yeah, I definitely, as things kind of kept going for Warzone, and like you were saying, things, in a lack of better words, becoming more professional and more established, I realized, if I want to kind of keep my name out there and stay on top of the scene, I have to evolve and start putting in a lot more hours into myself as my gameplay, and then also just as a teammate and how I can be a better teammate.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously other teams are doing that as well. Other teams are trying to get a leg up in some way, doing research. And I think the way the competitions were starting to get run, it was less about 2v2s, pub stomping. It was more about playing against other people in customs and trying to learn something, or learn about where they land, how they go about their rotations and things like that, and understanding a bit more about the other competitors that you're facing.
No, 100, exactly. And I'll even say this, I feel like a lot of the scene gets wrapped into this idea of like an S tier player, of like, this guy's an S tier gunny, like that's who you want to learn from. When in all reality, man, so many of these guys and so many players have these tiny things that are like they do differently that you can learn from, bro. Like, you literally can learn from some of the most crazy, even if per se you might think you're better than that guy in a way of like, maybe I'll gun him, or like I'll play better this situation better. You can always learn something. I definitely at one point in my time had like a closed off mindset to that. And I feel like that comes with just maturing and evolving in the scene, is realizing there's nothing wrong with being you can be a teacher in some aspects, but still being a student in others as well. Because I feel like as soon as you stop being a student of the game, you just start falling behind very rapidly.
So how did you go about when you were trying to mix getting into competitions and competing and being the best that you can be, but also at the same time you were obviously still continuing being a phenomenal streamer and also creating videos and things like that? You had a few really pop off, and a lot of them tended to be videos that would be around teaching things. Like, you had your movement guide that really took off on YouTube. And I've heard you speak about before that you didn't really want to be that guy, the teacher kind of thing, the how-to kind of guy. You wanted to show off you. So how did you find that balance?
Well, I'll say I feel like I'm still in a way still trying to find that balance. Uh, yeah, and I could totally be wrong on this as well, but I've just always felt like the teachers per se never get the respect they deserve in a way of like when it comes to competing time. And at that time in Warzone, competing was starting to, like you were saying, I mean, we were playing tournaments like every week, it felt like for six figures. So I was thinking in my head, as the scene progresses and flourishes, this prize pool money is only begun to become bigger. These things are going to start becoming more legitimate. And I was scared to shoot myself in the foot to become like this teacher role and then kind of like screw myself over when it comes to competing. And I was so like infatuated with my perception to the community of like I wanted to come across a certain type of way. Where nowadays I've definitely relaxed on that front, and I realize it's okay. It's okay to kind of be a teacher, because on YouTube, if you're not providing value, what other reason do people have to click on your content unless you've already built up this major kind of like support base that is going to watch you do whatever you want to do every single time. You always got to be providing value, and you always have someone that is their first YouTube video of yours they've ever seen. So even if you feel like I've posted hundreds, I got hundreds of thousands or millions of views and overall, there's still so many people that are just seeing you for the first time. And so being able to provide a value to them became very important to me. But yeah, it's tough to balance, hopping on stream, trying to compete at that time at a very high level and try to be one of the best players in the game, while also still taking note of my community, still trying to interact and keep what I love so much about streaming. And then also at the same time, staying very consistent with YouTube uploads, just because it's like I'm sure now that you've been in the game a little bit, it's a round the clock thing. Esports doesn't sleep. It's 24/7. And so yeah, I've definitely gotten more balanced, I would say, on that front. And I'm definitely excited to continue providing more, I guess, helpful content for people on YouTube. Back then, I was definitely very, very apprehensive of kind of getting labeled as like that tips and tricks kind of guy.
And I think, as I kind of got more into learning about how you guys go about it behind the scenes, it's kind of really opened my eyes to how much there are other people who do work in the background that most people probably never notice. Like the amount of stuff that Brandon does, guys like Morris and all the other mods on game days, on stream days, behind the scenes, you won't even notice them, and they'll be there doing things. It's really opened my eyes, and I have so much respect for a lot of the team behind the scenes now that I've kind of learned at what they do. It's insane the amount of work that goes into Team Exzachtt, for example.
No, yeah, and that's why I try my best to always never come across as like, this is a me thing. This is what I've accomplished. Like, this is what I've done. Just because I feel like I said, I've kind of been blessed to where I've had all these amazing people kind of fall into my life, and they fell into these roles. And like you're saying, man, Brandon does so much stuff behind the scenes. Morris, the mods, like Eternity Day, keeping up to date with commands. Like Morris is so good just because I never really have to tell him anything. Like he takes the initiative always. He's so on point always. And it's very slept on, where I feel like definitely the streamers always, or the content creator is the one that everyone kind of gets the flowers, right? Everyone gives them the praise. And that's why I always try to dial it back some and take time to really show love to the people that are there, because without, the mods, without Brandon in my corner, I wouldn't be where I'm at, and I wouldn't be who I am, and I would not be able to do the things I'm able to do every day. And that goes with every creator, I definitely, I don't know why. I guess just because it's easier for us to become the face of the team, just because we're the one on camera every day. And obviously you don't really ever see these team members on camera. But dude, it's so much work goes into it. There's so many hands involved. And in a way, that's what I love about it most as well, because I feel like if you work on things alone, it's cool, but it kind of gets like boring. It's always great to have multiple people in there sharing their ideas and just hands-on, really helping you kind of reach even more potential than you would have if you were just trying to do this all solo.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that I'm sure Brandon's put to you that you've kind of wouldn't have thought of, that he's just taken upon himself to do, and all that kind of thing. It's just like it's not a one-man job. There's no way one man can do everything that goes into that at this level that you're at right now.
Exactly. It's impossible. So I'm very, very thankful. And in a way, that's always been my goal of, hitting like a Titan level stream or anything like that, is being able to say, I've been with these group of people from the beginning, and then be able to change their life in like monetary ways or whatever it is, to the point where it's like they believed in me very, very early on, and they were down and they gave me 110% effort. And so when things kind of come full swing and you are like a Titan level creator, being able to still have those same people and being able to really like change their lives, whatever that may look like for them, that's like my end goal for sure.
Mm. And so, speaking of reaching goals, you did reach a pretty massive tournament win towards the end of Verdansk. And tell us about that time in your life where you finished first and won a couple of things at the same time with a group of people, and just taking that. Was there validation to that? Did it make it feel like it was all worth it?
There was. I remember to the Verdansk win we're talking about, with Bralic and Nick, when we won that customs, the Twitch Rivals, the 75K. Man, I try to put it into words, but because that was like my first ever win. But I remember when I won it, like, dude, my face was like numb, dude. I was sitting at my setup and I looked over at chat, and I think that day was like one of my highest organic viewer days. We probably had like a couple thousand, and plus usually when you win, tons of people will come see what you're doing. And so I looked over and I saw like however many, maybe like 2,500 people, chats flying. I'm seeing all the same homies from every day spamming emotes, and they're like, let's go. And like, it just felt like this one moment I had been working for so many months and so long, it was finally there. And I felt like, in a way, like it wasn't real, but it was real, like imposter syndrome. Like I couldn't believe it. And I just knew I knew I wanted to win more and I wanted to do it more, because I didn't want it to be like, I didn't win it all and then kind of lay back and be like, all right, we did it. I showed the world I could win a customs. I'm good. Like a big high level customs. Like I'm good now. It was like, I want to prove this wasn't a fluke. This wasn't just some random thing. Like Zach can win and I can win often. So it was crazy, man. Very, very crazy. And to do it with Brolic, just because he's one of the most genuine guys in the scene, man. And I've spoke on it on stream a lot, where when it comes to like team and stuff like that, I always excel more and I play more when I really have a love for my teammate and I want to win for them just as bad as I want to win for me. And similar to when it comes to socking, how bad I want to win for the community. It just really does kind of take me to a whole nother level and gets me more passionate, more locked in. And when I had B, and dude, one of the sweetest guys ever, like DMing me and all this stuff, and him having so much belief and us wanting to be like the underdogs and really kind of take the scene by surprise of like, yo, they won? Like who? And like us sharing that moment together, like will always be one of my favorite gaming moments. And I will always have so much love for B just as a homie and a teammate, and being able to kind of prove the world wrong in a way at that time.
It was such one of the most unique situations that, as a viewer watching that unfold, because of going through the years of unfortunate circumstances, stream snipers, the hacker resets that would never reset, a lot of hard luck situations, a lot of close calls, and then finally it all coming together to this one moment, and then watching the actual moment that you guys realize that you win, and hearing the screaming, watching your faces, watching the just elation that you felt. It was like overwhelming at the time as a viewer, as part of the community as well, but also kind of like you're hyped, but at the same time you just want to sit back and watch what happens, but also want to be involved in the chat. But what was your first thoughts when you realized that you had won custom Twitch Rivals?
I can literally like vividly see being at the setup. What I was thinking, I think my brain was just blank because I didn't know what the heck was going on. I was mind blown. But I just remember, I just wanted to like, I didn't want that moment to ever end. Like I just wanted to sit there and like just bask in the moment as long as I could, and just like, again, dude, all the sleepless nights, all the, just wanting to prove something so bad. And like you were talking about previously, getting shafted in so many different ways early on in all these tournaments. And at the time, like obviously I had a belief in the scene would keep going, but like this, like you always have these thoughts back then of like, this might be my last tournament. Like, what if I never get another shot? What if I completely bomb today? No one ever wants to play with me again. And so to have all those nights as well of kind of doubting, like, will I ever get another spot for sure? And to win that again with Brolic and Nick and have chat there, I just wanted to see, I just wanted to talk to everyone in chat at that point. I just couldn't believe it. I just wanted to literally just sit there and bask with everything with the homies, talk about the memories and everything. And at the time, I don't think I ever told anyone. People saw him, but I didn't. My dad he was watching the tournament from his house, and he probably lived like 5 minutes away from me. And one of the times I'd gotten up and went to the bathroom, I didn't even know my dad was in my house. He was like standing there, and he had tears in his eyes because he was so excited that I won, because he knew how bad I wanted it. And man, damn near bear hugged me off the ground, picked me up, and swung me around like I was a little kid. But it was just so cool to again, like you were saying, share that moment with everyone. I just want to talk about it with everyone in chat and all the homies, and have my dad, like, who's been my ride or die, to literally come over to my house and just so he could hug me and tell me how proud he was. It was a very, very satisfying feeling for sure.
Yeah, it's one thing that you notice when you're part of the community is your dad is literally always there. And I mean, like we said from the start of this chat, like, he got you into shooters, he was gaming with you and, you know, kind of brought you up. And I'm sure he's ridden every bump, every peak, every trough with you. And, you know, for him to see that, it must have been insane as well. But it was insane at towards the end of the lifetime of Caldera, when it came to an end, learning about a lot of losses were caused by some outside influences beyond our control. Like, a lot of people would, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, there was stream snipers. People paid contracts, bounties to actually stream snipe competitors and grief them. How did that make you feel as a competitor, first of all, and then also as a creator as well? You're kind of putting yourself out there, and there's things just being taken away from you that you had no control over.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. Just because I've talked about it a little bit before, but during that time period, man, it was so hard on me and B, just because, you know, we were in similar positions where we just wanted to prove how good we were to the scene, and we really wanted to be like these, like, not like in-house names or like home names, but for the community of, like, yeah, like Brolic and Exzachtt, like those guys, like, they're different. And we wanted it so bad, man. And a lot of those tournaments, you know, we would never blame it on anything. We would say like unlucky or whatever, and then we would talk afterwards and just be like, you know, Brolic would tell me, like, man, this is just so weird. See, I don't get it. Like, we're putting in all this time on and off stream. We're doing all these things. We're doing everything right. And it's like, we're making, like, we'd go back and watch the VODs of when we would lost. And it's like, dude, we made the right decision based on the info. Like, where is this guy coming from? Or like, how is this happening? Man, dude, like, both of us were kind of head cases there for a little bit, just because that's when the doubts start creeping in, because now, at that time, it's one thing to doubt yourself when you feel like you're not going 110%, because you're like, well, if I did go 110, like, I'd be fine. And in a way, I feel like, for me back in the day, and maybe others as well, they are a little scared to kind of put their best foot fully forward, because then, like, there's no more excuses at that point. Like, then if you don't get it done, you realize, okay, maybe this is on me. And so when I was putting everything I had into it and we were still falling short, the doubt started creeping in of like, man, maybe I'm not the player I thought I could be, or like, man, maybe we weren't the duo or the trio that I thought originally we could be, even though we had so much belief and I put so much time in. So when everything kind of started coming to light, it was a good thing. It made me feel like me and Brolic weren't like psychopaths and crazy, but at the same time, it was pretty heart-wrenching to feel like people were very down to impact not only my, but other players' livelihoods and their opportunities and their character, their name in the scene overall, just for them to make a couple bucks. I was such in disbelief, and in a way, it made me lose a lot of passion, just because it felt like I'm going to put in all this time and I'm going to do everything I can to be the best player in the world. But if so-and-so puts a $500 side bet against me, now I got to go against like tier 1 hitmen. So it kind of made me lose a lot of passion for competing at the time. And it just made me very hurt that, again, people would be so down to objectively just ruin a lot of opportunities for me and B, especially when I know how good of a guy B is and how much he did deserve. It changed my perception on a lot of things, I'd say.
Yeah, it was an unreal situation that came to light. We kind of always were like, I don't know, we've just been unlucky, and just randomly this team would sprout up and kill just out of nowhere. But then it would be like, you know what? It kind of makes a lot more sense now. So it was kind of like, wow, this is so weird. It's so like a terrible thing, but also at the same time, it was a bit of not closure, but something to say there was something. We did our best, and unfortunately, it was just not out of our control. So how's, I know that was a pretty big situation that unfolded. How is that sort of, like you said, it changed your passion and things for that? These days now in Warzone 2, how do you feel like you're approaching being a competitor, first of all?
I will say with this game, my main goal as a competitor and how I approach things now is what everything I've learned in Caldera, where like we talked about early Verdansk, I was like, I'm just gonna make sure my gunny's there and my comms are there and we're good. Where now I've kind of evolved to, realizing there's a lot more into play than just that. How I am as a teammate, kind of what my vibes are. And I did a lot of that in Caldera that I'm down to openly say that was one of my biggest downfalls, even towards like throughout a lot of Caldera is I'm a very competitive person. I'm very passionate, and I don't wear my heart on my sleeve per se, but the mood I'm in. Brandon makes fun of me all the time for it because the days like if I get very frustrated, he's like, Stream knows, bro. Don't matter if you try to be Mr. Vibey or something. We can see it on your face. You're not feeling it or whatever. You're frustrated about something. And I would let that kind of show with my teammates a lot more than I typically would. Just because I had so much going on in my life of extra stressors. And so then when me and Brolic were coming so close and nothing was working out and I knew how hard I was going, I was kind of showing how much more emotional I was, I guess, about things. But I've definitely learned in Warzone 2 about mental is everything as a competitor, and having your mental about you, regardless if the day's going poor or going well. It really affects how good you're going to be and how good of a teammate you can be. I guess that would be my main focus going into World Series is just being, I guess, the best teammate overall in a customs aspect, just because your vibes, your mental and everything like that is just as high up there as with your gunny and your decision making.
Do you feel like without having those the wages and the 2v2 things, that you feel like you missing out, not as a competitor but just personal satisfaction?
Yeah, I would say that. And I would say even I found that, when I was playing wagers in Caldera, I didn't really play them in Verdansk, but when I started playing them in Caldera, I felt like I saw my skill ceiling kind of like weekly go up because like you are now like you have to go as hard as you would. Like you could say like, yeah, we'll play pubs and sweat. Like, cause when I play with Joe, I'm sure people see like we vibe, but we still are like calm and very passionately. There's nothing on the line, but we're like, to me, like we're screaming. Cause we just have so much passion and love for the game. But I found that my skill ceiling was rapidly improving just because like, no, like now I have to give 110% because we got X amount of dollars on the line this map. And not only me, but my teammate does. And so you don't want to be the reason why you guys lose and your teammate loses that money as well. So I would say in a way it does hurt me, I'm sure, just because I felt like that's what really brought me, to a higher level very quickly.
Mm. I mean, another thing that sort of changed is the way that you've approached making content as well. A lot of the previous years, you'd say, would be like, this is a high-cool game, this is the guns to be using, this is a fun game that we played. And now, it's still the case, but the evolution of how the content has been put out there has really changed.
No, definitely. I think at that time, the reason I was putting out that content, well, one, like everyone was, but the game was just so popular, man, that the game could carry like really any aspect of content. So as long as you got like a bot lobby and you drop 50 with whatever gun, like that, you knew that was going to be a good video. And where now the game obviously isn't as popular. And I feel like you kind of have to find a way, just like I did when I left Blackout to Warzone, you kind of have to find a way as a creator to kind of go with the flow, and you have to read the room and realize, maybe like a swag or someone can still get away with posting, hey guys, here's this build, enjoy. But someone like me, if I really want to see growth and I want to show my potential as a creator, I'm going to have to put in the extra time and I'm going to have to think outside the box as the game obviously is nowhere near as popular as that was. If I do want to continue to see growth and to continue getting my name out there in this scene,
I mean, like I've really enjoyed the evolution of how it's changed now. It's kind of like a story. It's a lot of storytelling now. There's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, you have to spend extra time yourself, or you're doing a script, voiceover work, and even you did a couple of videos earlier addressing the weight of Warzone, and there was a lot of B-roll footage of yourself and taking extra speeches in front of the camera. Is that something that you've always been kind of comfortable with, or is that sort of like you evolving as well?
So no, actually, yeah, not comfortable at all, man. Not comfortable at all. And so again, like when I found that love of like maybe I want to take YouTube serious and really try to get better at the content and the quality of the content I am providing, I did find a love of just picking up the camera and doing things. And I have so many more things that I just haven't posted that I thought about posting, but we'll see if we ever do. But no, I definitely was not very comfortable. It sounds crazy, but talking on a live stream versus just talking to a camera is so different. It's so, I don't know what it is. And people probably will roast me for that one, but you do have to kind of find yourself on camera all over again and find how to find yourself comfortable and to talk. But at the same time, like I said, I fell in love with it. It was like this new thing that's been in front of me this whole time, and I just never did it. And then once I started to do it, I was like, dude, I can really see myself, whether it's continue kind of bringing that aspect in a way to the Warzone content, or even, branching out and having Warzone obviously as what I'm known for. But hey, here's some other things I'm doing as well if you're interested.
One of the things that I've noticed now as part of the community and being in the streams every day is there's still like a large amount of people who come in and would say that I've seen you from your YouTube. I thought I'd finally catch a live stream, which I find crazy. That, I mean, like you said, you've put out hundreds of videos. It's always going to be someone finds it for the first time, no matter how deep it's gone. But it's still probably inspiring to see that even though you've been streaming for so long, there's still people who come through the live streams from other content. And I mean, how does that feel for you, like knowing that it's still people finding you for the first time?
No, it's amazing, and it's definitely something as a creator now that it doesn't even feel real saying this, but I mean, what there's been people coming up on like the 4-year mark sub batch, and so in my head when people ask me how long you been streaming, my go-to is like 2 years because that just sounds right, but in a way it's been so much longer. And so you do start to build up of not that like people like people know me. But you do, like when you've been streaming for like 4 years in a scene that's Warzone, for the most part, and then like just because I've played in so many tournaments, and I feel like it's a unique situation because just because of the tournament scene, there's a lot of people that know of players that have never watched a player or anything, but they know of them because they're like, oh, I've seen his name in a tournament or something like that. I know that guy. So for me, I feel like I was in that boat. I'm in this weird boat of like, I like a lot of my homies are a lot larger creators than me. And so I'm like in that field of like, yeah, Exzachtt, but I'm not as large as them. So it's weird of like, new people finding me, this, that, and the other. But when they do, it kind of revitalizes that, like, I don't know, not youth of like streaming, but I guess that like I got like that grit of like I got to make this happen, and like people are finding me for the first time. I need to be bringing them 10 energy. I need to be going hard, and really putting my best foot forward every day because, like you're saying, streaming for a long time, it doesn't. With like the first early days, I would feel so anxious before I would press go live. Like every stream, didn't even in Verdansk, like I would feel so anxious. I would have to hype myself up. I'd be bumping music like let's go, let's like you got to bring a show today because you want to play super well. You want to like be very vibey with everyone. You want everyone to have a good time, and that's always my goal. Is when people come to my stream and they leave my stream, that they had a good time that day. So having, after doing it for so long, you kind of lose that aspect of anxiety because it's like, it's just another day of streaming. Like I'm not that scared anymore. But having those new people stop by, one, it just makes you relock in of like, wow, there's still new people finding me. This is their first time seeing me. I need to put my best foot forward, gameplay wise, whatever it may be. And then also too, just like I was saying about YouTube, because it's great when the YouTube be like, yeah, I have this many subs on YouTube. But when you're not interacting with those people, they don't feel like real people in a sense. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But, so it's so cool when they do stop by, because then I can start getting to kind of know people from my YouTube side of things in a more personal way. And it's always cool to, even now, like seeing more of them, like they pop in and say that, and then they'll start hanging out. And then before you know it, they're talking to people in chat and they're like, yo, so and so, what's up? And then they start getting acclimated with the community. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it is. I understand what you mean by the YouTube subs. It kind of could just feel like another number, but when they're in the live stream, obviously you have that communication. You can see them interacting, and I mean, not a lot of the chat, the people who view you in live stream like to chat. A lot of people just like to lurk and hang out. But yeah, I know a lot of things have changed for you over the years. Like you said, the way you approach your streaming has kind of changed. You might feel less anxious going on, like you're a bit more comfortable with it. But how does the day-to-day change now? Like, I know you used to go on like multiple times, twice a day kind of thing, but now that looks like there's a lot more things that go on behind the scenes. What's a typical day in the life of Z look like?
Typical day. I would say recently, yes. So I'm a very momentum and like schedule based person, I guess. In a way of I don't live like a super exciting life. Like I like spontaneous things, but for the most part, I kind of like I have my few things I enjoy to do, and that's me. So my days are pretty simple, I guess. Just wake up, whether it's doing in the gym, cooking that day, or learning something. That's one thing I guess I do a lot that I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing yet, but I really enjoy every day to just learn new stuff about things I probably, whether or not I get into it or not. So I just always enjoy the process of learning things. So a lot of my time is spent gym, hanging out, doing something outdoors, getting out for a little bit since I do set at the setup so much, and just learning like random stuff on life or whatever my peak interest is at that time, whatever that may be. But yeah, nothing like super glamorous or like super exciting really to talk about as much.
No, it's always struck me that how much you enjoy the outdoor life, because you like to talk about it growing up. You spend a lot of time outside, you like hiking and things like that, and I think that's really good that you still have a balance, because you do, as a streamer, as a creator, sit in front of a screen for a long time.
Oh man, it's crazy. Like you don't ever think about it until you're like, man, like I've been in that one room all day, like every day for the past week. Like, holy, maybe I should go like get some sun. Maybe that's why I'm not feeling the best at the moment. Like I've literally been in a dark room for 5 days straight. And I definitely did that. I will say when I first moved to Texas, going into Caldera, when I got that apartment, I spent a lot of time where I kind of slowed down my life and what I was doing. And I was putting in a lot more time on stream and then off stream, playing off stream wagers and stuff that I wasn't doing as much anymore. And it impacted me. Like I said, I was definitely getting a lot more flustered than I normally would about things. Whatever it was, looking back, it makes me literally laugh when I think about some of the streams, stuff I would trip over. And just bringing that balance to your mind of just stepping away from everything for a little bit and going outside and realizing, like, not the corny cliche of like what's actually important, but it definitely helps bring back your perspective on things versus if you're just always going hard, like every second of the day, you can kind of lose yourself in a way.
So what's the plan for the next couple of years? Like even the next, couple of months ahead, do you plan on approaching things the same way? Is there new things in the works? Like what's going on?
For the future, I would say no, definitely not how things have been lately. Things have kind of, and that's kind of poured over from everything that kind of happened towards the end of Caldera, like and I took a break for a little bit. And that break was really just to kind of spend time with family and stuff like that, just because, and to this day as well, it's something I don't think a lot of creators talk about is the sacrifices you do make to be a creator. To where, maybe you're not going to as many family functions anymore. Maybe you're kind of missing some birthdays. Maybe you're missing somebody's important day here and there because you need a stream or you need to do that. And I definitely feel like maybe in a way I've overcompensated during my break just because I shut that aspect of my life down for so long that I kind of freaked me out a little bit when I realized. But going forward, just getting back to a more set schedule where streams, I used to be so good about it during Caldera. It wasn't per se, but early days of like having a set time where all the homies know, like whatever time it is, Zach's going to be there. The gang's online. Like, oh, it's 7 p.m. Like the gang's gonna be hanging out right now. Like they got on at 5 or whatever it is. Having something like that and to continue, continue getting better as a creator overall. I want to continue getting better as a player. But just to continue getting better as a creator, even outside of just live streaming, whether it's the YouTube uploads or whatever it is, I want to do this as long as possible. I have so much passion, not only for gaming, but just for people in the scene, I guess, in a way, and just community building. That, like I told you early on, that kind of quickly became my forefront of why I do what I do and why I don't really lose passion for that, because there's so many amazing people in my corner and so many amazing people in the streams, in the community, whatever it may be. So yeah, I would say the next few months and going forward, Modern Warfare 3 is going to be coming out. I think they said in November. So we'll have that in November. But just trying to get a schedule in place to know I'm live every day at this time. We have YouTube videos uploaded on these days, but not in a way of just throwing something up to throw it up. I really want to pride myself in being as professional as I can be when it comes to content creation.
I think that's one thing that, as part of the community, I probably know this. A lot of the people who've been around for a long time, the videos on gaming and everything like that are great, and we're here for it. And I think something else we really enjoyed was getting to know Zach from behind the scenes, the real life things that happen, and I know it was kind of a hard time to go through that, the end of last year and the start of this year when you took your break. But when you came back and you kind of shared a bit about yourself, it was really refreshing, not only to hear a creator talk about some of the things that don't get talked about, but also getting to know, what makes your favorite creator tick is something refreshing. And I think a lot of people would definitely they do appreciate.
I appreciate that, man. It was very hard. And just because I am an open book in a way, but at the same time, I know that at the end of the day, like everyone has things they struggle with. We're all kind of sharing the human experience, and we all have our things. May not be the same exact thing, but it still impacts you in the same way. And so I've never wanted to come online and plead like a victim case to people, like I feel bad for me, like times are rough. And that's kind of why it's always easier for me to just step away and not say much at all, because I never want to portray something that's not the case. But I really do appreciate that. In a way, it feel pretty good because I was very scared. That was one of the scariest uploads, man. I was sick. I haven't had anxiety to the point where my stomach hurt in years, man. And I remember like my stomach hurt so bad coming back and making that video with B and being open and honest with a lot of people. But when I saw the response to it and the DMs I was getting, the comments, very similar to what you were saying, a lot of people were found, I don't know what it was. I think it was just me just showing like a very real aspect of my life that a lot of people could respect and appreciate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a very sort of vulnerable side to you that you put out in that video. And I can't imagine, like you said, how anxious you would have felt. Now, so Z the competitor or Z the content creator? Is there a change up in your priority now, or is it still pretty much you want to just win tournaments and win as much as you can?
A little bit of a change, I would say. I'm definitely taking competing more seriously. And it's weird just because when I first was gaming, I wanted to be a pro player. And then I kind of, once the streaming started working, and then I realized my love for streaming and content creation, it kind of totally changed. But I'm at a point now in life where, I still don't have any major responsibilities. It's not like I have like kids or anything like that to where I can't fully devote myself. And after taking the break and kind of everything that's happened in my life, I realized how fast things can change and how quickly you can lose things and how quick your life can totally change. So going forward, I'm doing my best to literally, even though it's like a 50-50 of content creation and competing, I want to give 110% of my all to both of those things as long as I can and as long as it's there,
And what's something that you would give advice to yourself from starting out 5 years ago or so? What would you tell, Zach starting out back in the day?
Dude, a long list. I would just say learning that it's okay to kind of be about yourself a little bit more. I feel like a lot of the times I was always scared to post a lot or scared to post this video, that video, because I'm like, I don't know. I've just never thought I was that cool or whatever. So I'm like, oh, like people don't care. Like they might not resonate with this, or like they don't think this video is cool. Like I'm not gonna post that one. And realizing like it's good to, in a way, obviously nobody in the world should ever have like a really big ego or anything, but having like a sense of like pride in yourself to know like regardless if you're gonna like it or not, it is what it is, post it. Because I was so apprehensive for a very long time to just post YouTube content because I'm like, people might not care or people might not like that. And also I'm a perfectionist. So if I felt like I couldn't provide the perfect video, then it was a waste of time. It was chalked. And to realize like, you're never going to make the perfect video. You're never going to make the perfect piece of content. The most important thing is consistency and how often you are. Obviously, it just can't be terrible quality. Still got to have really good quality, but consistency is everything. And I wish I would have, if I could go back in time and knock on my door and tell myself that, I definitely would have.
No, listen, you've had a tremendous journey, and as someone part of the community, I'd like to thank you for just handling yourself as best as you can, and being yourself and never changing. It's been really refreshing to be part of something it's been a community that's so genuine and there for each other all the time, and it's obviously a reflection on you, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
No, man, thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Like I said, it's all been a blessing, and it's been 4 years. It doesn't feel like that. And to me, it still feels like it's the beginning. I still have a lot of passion in me and a lot of heart in me when it comes to doing what I do and getting better at what I do. So it means a lot coming that from you. Obviously, I've seen you doing your thing and everything you've been doing, and I have a lot of respect for you as a creator and what you've been able to do with your podcast thus far. And as well, I'm very, very excited to see what you're going to continue to do as well, man, for real.
Thanks, C. I appreciate you. Take it easy, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You as well, man.